This episode is presented by Mercury, the fintech that simplifies how more than 200,000 businesses operate.
Hey.
Hi.
Hello, and welcome to the Equity Podcast Live, which is always exciting. I did this last year. Last year, I wore like a full sequin jacket, but I didn't want to outshine you, Devin. So
I was going to wear one today as revenge, but no, it's probably better this way.
I decided tweed was more suitable for like, you know, your vibe.
Tweed? I have some tweed.
Sure. A little bit. Yeah.
It's textured.
It's textured. Well, enough fashion talk. Thank you for coming this morning. And we're going to talk about a lot of stuff, but one of the things I want to touch on a little bit is a little bit of a recap from yesterday. Margaux, you had a panel yesterday.
I had 2 panels yesterday.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about them.
Yeah, I did one on the stage for finding product market fit. And then I did one in the afternoon about banking as a service after the collapse of Synapse.
Okay.
So,
And what'd you learn?
I learned that banking as a service is tough and that it's going to be a long road ahead.
Yeah, it's similar to what I cover, which is cars, which is building cars is hard. That's why so many fail.
Isn't banking already kind of a service?
So a lot of people have asked me that, and yeah, it is.
It's sort of the essential part of it. And then you interviewed Peter Beck yesterday with Rocket Lab.
Yeah, that was over the industry stage. That was great. Peter's always great. We talk a lot, and we're best buds, and he's always just a really genuine, like, interesting person to talk to about not just his own company, but the space industry. He's obviously very well-informed, extremely smart guy. And he's built this whole huge company that I still think of when I think of it. I think of it as him and his friends, like, putting together rockets in the, like, hinterlands of New Zealand when, like, no, this is one of the most important people in the space industry and has, like, created this really, like, gigantic and dynamic company.
So since you're such good friends, does he invite you into the hinterlands and you just like monkey wrench on the Venus spacecraft?
He has invited me out, but it's very, very far.
I was actually making a joke, but
I think it's one of those. I think it's one of those invitations where it's like, oh, you must come over sometime, and it's like, yes, to New Zealand. Like, that is not an option for me. And he's like, yes.
Can you go to space?
I thought I was going to go to space, but not on Rocket Lab. I thought I was going to go on Virgin Galactic.
Oh,
they were giving me all these hints, but it was just because they wanted me to come to this event. It was not going to space. I was very disappointed. I was like, I'm not coming to your event either.
If you can last 5 hours through some PowerPoint presentation, then you get to go to space.
I'd do it.
You would fail every time, by the way.
I think we'll have the chance to go to space. I guarantee you guys will be able to have the chance to go to space. It won't be like on a New Shepard or whatever. Once the price comes down, it's just going to be like an expensive vacation. You go to space. I guarantee it. Within 10 years, it'll be like.
But is it the lame space? I want to be like
out. It is
out.
the lame space. Unfortunately.
But it's like you just go to the edge. You're not like.
Yeah, you like touch the Kármán line, which is the 100-kilometer line. Unfortunately, you probably won't be getting much microgravity or doing orbit or anything. That'll stay hella expensive.
Yeah. I think we could just expense it on the corporate card.
I can do that. We can do it.
Totally
I think
cool
you're
with
the
that.
senior person here, so it has to go on your card.
Yeah, I can't wait to use Concur for that. Awesome software, by the way. We should talk about some deals. I want to start off with Sierra, the AI startup co-founded by OpenAI chairman Bret Taylor, because Bret Taylor is actually going to be here today. I don't know if you knew that, but Frederick's going to be interviewing him, I think around 2:20 today, so you all should definitely check it out. Talk to me about this deal.
It's boring in the valuable way. When you see something and you're like, oh, that sounds really boring. And then you read it and you're like, yeah, that probably is going to be a really valuable business, though. It's most of like Salesforce related stuff. No offense to any Salesforce people here, but it's like enterprise software, SaaS stuff. It's not super exciting in a sort of visceral sense. And so we have this AI company that is going to be focusing on customer service, chatbots, essentially. I say chatbots because apparently he hates it when you say it's chatbots, but like, it's chatbots. Let's be honest here. I mean, and we've had chatbots for a long time, but the original chatbot, sort of explosion was very bad, and they were very bad. No one wanted them. And apparently the new chatbots are going to be way better, and that's why someone gave him $175 million. The total is $285 million, valuing the company at $4.5 billion. That's huge. And I mean, they have some deals in place with Weight Watchers, Sirius. They're getting in these big brands probably because he has all the ins with everybody from Salesforce and OpenAI. They know that, he can run a business. That's good. But It doesn't really feel like AI to me. Like when they're like, AI is going to change everything.
What does feel like AI to you? Because I feel like, you like to poke holes in AI.
Certainly it's not, it doesn't feel intelligent. It just feels like a chatbot, like a better chatbot.
Are there not a million companies doing AI chatbots right now?
There are a lot, and there are plenty doing customer service as well. So, I'm skeptical of the value in that sense. Sometimes the big 900-pound gorilla comes in and takes over the market. Maybe that's what this is. But there genuinely are other, options already that may or may not be better or worse. Like I have not myself run a customer service chatbot, so I don't know what's needed. Maybe this one is a breath of fresh air, and they're like, oh, finally I can pick between models, and I can iterate, and I can do this, and I can adjust the personality to be more or less, servile or whatever. Maybe this is the chatbot to rule them all.
Well, and Bret Taylor does have the experience potentially here to rise above the rest, right? Because
and the money.
But the experience, he was at Salesforce for more than a decade, right? Or about a decade. And so this is someone who absolutely knows enterprise software and what people are looking for. To Margaux's point, there are a million chatbots out there. So what is it going to take to get the ones that are usable and that people want?
I guess we'll find out, because I think that people are still exploring this space. Like personally, whenever I get a chatbot, I immediately tell it, please tell me, I don't know why I say please, but I say, please let me speak to a human.
Very polite.
And it immediately reroutes me to a human. And I'm just like, well, good, because this will certainly solve my problem, in returns or insurance stuff or whatever. I'm like, I don't want to deal with the AI. I don't know what its capabilities are. I don't know what it has access to or not. And if I deal with it for 5 minutes and then it's like, oh, sorry, your problem is too complicated for me, I'm going to hand you to a human. I'm like, well, just give me the human in the first place. So that's my experience with chatbots. And I imagine it's, because I project myself onto the world, I imagine that's the experience for millions of other people. So I think that this is a purely cost-saving measure by these companies, which rarely is also a good thing for customers.
Right. This has been a theme on the show, especially when it's been around things that are, let's say, high touch and like of rentals, like landlords. We were talking months ago about, an AI chatbot that would like route you and deal with supposed like maintenance and stuff. But if you are a renter, it's like you kind of want to talk to the landlord human. Right?
Yeah. The fact that they're doing it tells me that they save money, that they get a benefit from this. And if the company, if Weight Watchers or whatever, it gets some sort of benefit from having this AI chatbot instead of a customer service agent wherever, then it doesn't follow that I also benefit. It's certainly they benefit because they've made this choice. So I just view it from that lens. And maybe it'll be a positive too, because sometimes, it's better for them, it's better for us, but it's not always the case.
So I was looking through it, and like with every AI deal, I was trying to figure out what's different from the million other AI deals. Something that struck me as interesting, and I'm really curious if this actually is very different, was it talked about how the tech uses one model to do the heavy lifting with the expectation that it won't be 100% reliable, and then it uses a second model as a backup to like check its work. Is that something other companies are doing? That was the first time I had heard of that.
These kinds of like overseer models are pretty common.
Okay.
You just have you have the big model, and then when it says something, it goes through a little overseer model that like basically says like, is this racist or is this egregiously
and it's
incorrect?
Able to use different, like I'd use Anthropic to check OpenAI.
I do not. People are almost certainly doing that and like mixing and matching, but the industry is moving so fast. Having an overseer model is very smart, and there's other companies that do that, so they probably are hiring someone else, or maybe they've made their own. But as you mentioned, they don't make their own foundation models. Few people do now. You use OpenAI or Claude or whatever. But having an overseer model and then like their own little models that sort of customize it or whatever, it's a non-trivial amount of work and differentiation, I think.
Interesting.
They say that there's less hallucinations, though. I don't know why that...
Yeah, I was going to ask. So the point of this, I'm assuming, is for it to be two things: less hallucinations, and the analogy you were giving, or the example you were giving a little bit ago, was about how you would get frustrated with a chatbot. So the assumption here is that they're smoothing that out. But I don't know if I've had a chatbot that I've interacted with, and maybe it's just a reflection of the fact that I never interact with them. I don't get hallucinations from chatbots, but I don't use them a lot. Do you?
No, I hardly ever use them at all. But I can picture it.
Oh, okay.
Sure, yeah.
Because you're asking them questions that they're like out of the scope of what they should know,
Or I'll be asking it a series of questions and it'll like not take into account the first message and give me something completely different. I think there's kind of like a long-term memory issue.
They're getting better at this, and reducing hallucinations is a big thing, but We should probably move on, huh?
Yeah, we should move on. Well, okay, so the deal that I want to talk about happened a few days ago. This is Waymo, and I'm sure all of you who don't live in SF and the ones who do have been hopefully trying them out, and they're everywhere, all over SoMa, all over San Francisco, quite
I
frankly.
see them.
But the news here is that they raised $5.66 billion. Now, back in July, the company did raise $5 billion. So this is really just an extension to that. And what I find so interesting about Waymo, this is an Alphabet company. Unlike other companies like Zoox is going to be on our stage tomorrow, they have brought on external investors. And so you get a little bit of insight in how much money they're spending. Zoox, owned by Amazon, doesn't do that. So you don't really have any insight into what they're spending, what the cash burn is. GM CEO and Chairman Mary Barra is going to be here today. They did external investors for Cruise, the AV company they bought, but then they actually bought those external investors out again. So there's a lot of money moving around here, but I just find it really interesting. Gives you a tiny little bit of insight into Waymo and like what their cash burn is. Basically, short story, a lot.
If you wonder, we were talking about this backstage, and it's like, how much money do you think those cars themselves cost? Like, we don't expect those to be the production cars, obviously, but like each one of those cars, like the little, what do you call them? The chicken butt?
Is that what it's called?
Chicken bucket. It's not a chicken butt.
No,
I was like, that would be
A chicken bucket. They call them chicken buckets because they look like a KFC bucket.
Yeah, KFC bucket.
But those Velodyne chicken bucket LiDARs, each one of those costs as much as a regular car. A lot of them do anyway. And you got like 10 of them on the thing, along with all the electronics. Like, you're looking right off the bat at like, more than $500,000 probably in the $600,000-$700,000 range.
Yeah,
Don't you think?
I think the costs have gone down. First of all, like LiDAR costs have gone down extremely because if you remember back in I want to say 2018, during the midst of the hype cycle of AVs, every company was going after LiDAR. And a lot of them have shut down. And they've also pivoted to, marketing for advanced driver assistance, trying to get in on production cars. So the cost of LiDAR has absolutely fallen.
Those spinners, though, because there's flash LiDAR, there's all the 20 different kinds of LiDAR.
Yeah, Waymo developed their LiDAR in-house. So you might remember a few years ago, they actually launched kind of like as a pilot, a business where they were going to sell LiDAR to other industries, not AVs. And they don't talk about that much anymore. I'm guessing sales weren't amazing.
Probably because it cost exactly what I suggested before.
Yeah.
I'm going to guess.
Do you have a guess of how much it costs?
Yeah, I think that each car is about $300,000 to $400,000 total.
So we're in agreement in principle here. These are supercars. Basically.
Sure, I just want to be right.
All right.
Okay.
I'll allow it.
But if you think about it, it's not just the hardware. Hardware costs are falling. The issue here is that it's the business model. So robotaxis, people are using, I've used them a lot. Every time I'm here, I try them out. And then I also at the same time pull up my Uber or Lyft app and see what the cost differentiation is. And sometimes it's on parity and sometimes it's higher, sometimes it's slightly lower. But there is a human cost. There are humans still supporting a Waymo robotaxi. Quite a few. Not a ton, but there is a cost associated to that.
In what way? How are humans still?
So, first of all, they have operations centers. So they're watching. There's a call center. You can call a Waymo operator if you have any problems. And
Am I being watched when I'm in a Waymo?
They have cameras in there.
For sure.
Yeah. But there's a thing called remote guidance. Some people call it also teleops. This isn't joystick driving a vehicle because that would be like cellular latency is an issue. But this is, you've probably seen it, like a Waymo all of a sudden is behind a double parked vehicle. And what does it do? How does it, it will, human folks, Waymo, yeah, thank you. Not robots, will be watching that. They'll let the car make its decision. But if for some reason it gets stuck, they will send what's called path planning or like a software code. And then the vehicle will make that decision and move on. So there is human support there.
Interesting.
And there's a cost to that.
Yeah. Where is Tesla at with theirs? Who's the biggest competitor to Waymo right now?
Okay, so let's all be clear. I'm sure I'm going to get so many evil DMs. Tesla FSD is not full self-driving. The human is expected to take control. Are there automated features? Yes. Can it work in a city? Yes. But the reliability and responsibility is on the human driver. You are technically not supposed to have your hands off the wheel, and you can't go sleep in the back. And that's the difference between a Waymo in which you can do that, right? There is no liability to the human in the vehicle. The liability rests with Waymo.
I took a Waymo for the first time yesterday, and Julie, my editor, she was like, I sat in the front and she was like, you're going to have to like make calls. Like the touch screen is going to tell you, like, you need to tell them if there's a kid in front of you.
No.
She was joking and I was terrified. I was like looking out for children.
Yeah, no, that would be a crazy business model if like
the person in the front seat.
Be a really
I've seen
interesting video
crazier.
game. Yeah, what?
I've seen, I don't know, Bret Taylor's new thing.
Oh.
No. But is Tesla, but Elon's talking about, I'll flip the switch and all the Teslas.
Sure.
But they're still fully optical, right? Like they're just using cameras.
They're just using cameras.
That's crazy.
They have talked, and there's a lot of debate about it. There are some people out there who say that eventually cameras will be able to do this. And there's a lot of debate on also where those cameras are placed. But, a Waymo or a Zoox or any of these other companies, they have a ton of built-in redundancy that a personal Tesla Model 3 with full FSD software doesn't have. Redundant compute, redundant braking, redundant steering, all sorts of other things. So just a couple weeks ago, Elon said, by next year, we expect to be able to have the approval to operate these army of robotaxis, which are the personal vehicles, in California. And I will place a bet right now that that will not happen. Even if it was capable, which I think they have a lot of problems on that side. Quite frankly, it is an arduous process to be able to do that. There are 2 agencies in California. Ask Waymo how long it took. Ask Cruise, which can't even operate here. It's a long path. And as far as I know, they haven't really gone very far down that road.
But he'll still be right because he said, well, we only said that we expect.
Right, true.
That's not a lie. I was telling the truth.
No. And we all, like a lot of people, I've been covering Elon and the world of Elon for a long time. And I think a lot of people give a lot of grace to Tesla for the timelines or the deadlines, let's say, that don't quite happen.
Right.
Because eventually it'll happen, right? But we'll see. Like, will he launch it in Texas? That's the other state. Very different regulatory environment.
Yeah.
But will you take another Waymo again is the question.
I liked it.
Yeah.
They played like peaceful spa music, which I imagine is to stop people from freaking out. And it worked. It was very meditative.
Well, you can actually change the music in there too.
I know, but it just changed it to another spa song when I tried. It's like they knew that I was going to freak out.
All spa songs.
Yeah.
Like Enya remix. I love that.
A lot of EDM.
Business finances are complex, and the solution isn't what you think. It's not another tool or even a secret. It's the bank account, the one thing every business needs. Mercury simplifies your financial operations with powerful banking, corporate credit cards, bill pay, invoicing, and more, all in one place. Apply in minutes at mercury.com.
Maybe we should talk about General Catalyst and move on from robotaxis. All right, this is your deal.
So General Catalyst raised $8 billion in new funds for early stage startups. It's broken down a little bit interesting. It's got $1.5 billion is earmarked for like repeat or proven founders, which is kind of interesting because I feel like that's where most VC money goes anyway, but they've explicitly earmarked it for that. And then what I find really interesting is that they really emphasize that it's going to be like deployed internationally. And they've made some very prominent moves to expand internationally. They actually merged with a Berlin-based firm and merged with an Indian-based firm. And what I find most interesting is that they invested in a Saudi startup for the first time. We don't know if Saudi Arabia is a part of this as an LP in the $8 billion funds, but I've talked to a lot of people in Saudi Arabia in the tech scene, and it's definitely a thing that Saudi is like, if we're going to give you money, you have to deploy some of that in Saudi Arabia. Also, the only way we know if a startup has taken Saudi money right now, obviously if they tell us, but the PIF, which is like the big sovereign wealth fund, their website, they randomly published like a few years ago, the investment firms that they gave money to. It's unclear if they like ran that by those firms, but I used to be at the information and my coworker, Becky Peterson, just like stumbled upon it one day and was like, oh my God. And yeah, I believe that's how we found out that Andreessen Horowitz had taken Saudi money. So
everyone's taking Saudi money.
They are.
In the transportation world, we've got Lucid, who's like majority owned by the Sovereign Wealth Fund. And you see a lot of startups in sort of like the frontier tech realm of transportation, like AVs and eVTOLs. Flying cars, Devin, your favorite
flying
topic.
cars, flying taxis. Yeah, it's a private helicopter.
Yeah.
Just stop calling it flying car.
Yeah. We know the debate. We've had it many times. But they have absolutely like taken a lot of this money and have been encouraged to like set up shop there. So it's interesting to see now the involvement with VC funds and how that's going to play out there? Like, will they set up an office there? Will they be, like, where is that money going to go?
My favorite anecdote when I was reporting on Saudi Arabia and investment firms going there is that the drivers at the main hotels have memorized the route from sovereign wealth fund to sovereign wealth fund, because so often that is what they're hired for when investors come out there in the past 2 years. It's autopilot. They know where everyone's looking for money.
Wow, fascinating. So a different kind of sandhill road, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm curious, a place like Saudi Arabia, obviously they have a ton of money.
Yeah.
But a lot of people live there too, and there's obviously a different innovation culture and stuff like that. I wonder whether it's possible to, whether the innovators and founders, entrepreneurs in Saudi Arabia, do they want to grow their companies in Saudi Arabia, or do they want to come to Silicon Valley? I mean, because you find this split in many other, in this part of Europe, they like to stay because they have, in Berlin, they stay. In Paris, they leave. In Norway, they stay. In Finland, they leave. I wonder how it is in Saudi Arabia.
You'll see a lot of companies in the Middle East just setting up their headquarters in Saudi Arabia. So it's a lot of companies from, across the region, which is what Saudi wants. Like, Saudi wants to be what UAE has pretty effectively done and be a hub for the region. So you obviously have some entrepreneurs there. I talked to one founder there who there was a point when he got so many term sheets from US-based firms because they all were trying to take Saudi money, and there's not a ton of Saudi-based startups out there. So he got 1 million term sheets because they were all trying to show Saudi Arabia that they would invest locally.
I'm curious about the breakdown of this deal. So of this $8 billion in new funds, you've got 4.5 dedicated to this core VC fund. And then this was kind of interesting to me, 1.5 earmarked for so-called creation strategy. Do you know what that means?
It just means basically repeat or quote unquote proven founders.
Okay. So building, proven founders building new companies.
Yeah. Again, I don't know why they decided to specifically earmark it for that, because
It seems a little weird. I mean, because obviously you would take that into account when you're like, oh, this founder, either you fund them on the merits or you don't, or on the founder's merits too. That's part of it's not just, oh, here's the pitch, here's the company. You also think well, what's your experience as the founder? You're going to be the leader of this company. It's obviously a huge part of the evaluation process.
But why dictate that specific amount?
I wonder if it's a deal with their LPs, right? We're obviously in a point when LPs are getting kind of tired of just putting money into VC firms and then not seeing it forever. So I wonder if LPs were like, okay, but you have to earmark some of this for really proven founders. Yeah, it might be a sign of the fundraising environment right now.
Okay. Well, then there's $2 billion for separately managed accounts. So typically special investment vehicles created for a single institutional investor.
I know, I'm curious if you guys have thoughts about that. It was my impression that when funds want to raise a special purpose vehicle, they do it kind of separately. It's interesting to me to have that money earmarked.
Yeah, within a single fund. Yeah.
What's special about a special purpose? This is to me, this is a completely different language.
So it's my understanding, and people should let me know after if I have a poor understanding.
I'm sure someone here will tell you if you're wrong.
I think a lot of firms did this for investing in X. It's when you don't necessarily, you're raising separate money from the money that you've already raised. Sometimes this is for, big investments, controversial investments. It's kind of like a different deal you bring to your LPs and ask them if they want to invest in, and it doesn't necessarily take away from your main fund. That's my normal understanding of it. I have not heard of a fund raising money for that. It makes me wonder if there's a deal they're looking at that they've raised that money for, if they have some of the later stage companies that are going to be raising big rounds and they kind of told LPs, let's give me an extra $2 billion and I promise that will go towards our really successful later stage companies.
That sounds like an amazing scoop you should definitely work on this week.
Yeah, if anyone here knows anything about that,
assignment given. I want to go back to that creation strategy because I did forget to mention this. So the head of General Catalyst European business said, if a founder is, quote, looking to embed AI and looking to build a product, looking to co-develop and co-hatch products together with them. And they've already done that with Fever Energy. That's the Scandinavian climate tech company. So that kind of gives you a hint of what they're focused on. It's not just proven founders building new products, but specifically with an AI focus, it seems.
Yeah, I think we're also seeing more firms do more internal incubating. Lux Capital has done that for a long time. Founders Fund does that often. This could be their move to incubate more companies that they have more of a hand in from the start.
Okay, so we talked a little bit about Saudi, but 25% of this fund is going to go to Europe as well, which is interesting to me. Do you have any sense of what the focus is in Europe? Because that could, a sector or specific countries within it that they're particularly interested in?
I'm biased because I cover defense tech, but there has been a defense tech boom in Europe as well. Helsing AI is kind of like Europe's Anduril. They actually, General Catalyst, invested in them, and that is kind of like their main defense tech company. So maybe defense tech?
That's interesting to me because I don't really, when I think defense tech or any dual use startup, I always just think of the US and US government, DoD. Yeah. I don't think of Europe really at all.
It's been hard for US firms to get, or US companies to get defense deals in Europe. They definitely prioritize Europe-based companies.
I would say if I was investing billions of dollars in the European ecosystem, I would go after
one does.
Just be like, I would definitely go, I'm biased, of course, too, but I think that there's going to be a big focus on sovereign space assets. Like every country is going to want their own privately organized, or not necessarily private, but related to them. They're going to have a France constellation. You're going to have a German constellation, and everybody's going to be able to afford it. And a company that provides that service, you're like, hey, I'm the Starlink for sovereigns, which is probably just going to be Starlink, let's be honest, but that kind of thing. If you said I'm the Starlink for sovereigns and we're going to launch your own government or, semi-government constellations, that would be a huge, huge, huge growth business over the next 10, 15 years.
Not to bring everything back to the Middle East, which is a region I read a lot about, but I've heard of a lot of space companies being flown out by UAE and Saudi for that reason, where they're like, the deals aren't necessarily that they're going to invest in their round, but the deals are that they're going to pay to set up a big factory there, pay to set up a headquarters, and the deal is that they then can kind of say they have a sovereign space force that they can call on when they need.
Interesting. Also, when I think of dual use in Europe, I think a lot about energy, not just climate resilience, but energy resilience in terms of not relying on, for example, natural gas from Russia and energy independence. And so I wonder if any money will go to that sector as well. I'll be kind of keeping an eye on that.
Yeah, I agree. Hopefully.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for the last couple of years, there has to be a huge transformation going on in what people are willing to commit hundreds of millions of dollars or billions to. And obviously, they want to get in on that at the ground floor.
Before we leave, I'm just curious what you all will be focused on today and tomorrow at Disrupt that you're most excited about.
Well, tomorrow I'm going to be talking with Arvind, the CEO of Perplexity. And that should be an interesting conversation because I think we have diametrically opposed views on 100% of all topics. I think he's a very smart guy and a very savvy business person. Yeah. But I think that, it's going to be an interesting conversation, or at least I hope it's interesting. It'll be interesting to me. I hope you all will show up and find it interesting as well. For him, it might be unpleasant.
Nice. An unpleasant, spicy conversation, hopefully, for everyone. No, just kidding. Just for him. What about you?
I'm doing the pitch showcase for FinTech.
Oh, it's so fun.
Yeah, so I'm a judge for pitches, and I've already told my co-judge that I'm going to be the bad cop. I'm going to just berate them and be very cruel.
Cool. Can't wait.
Yeah.
A bunch
That's
of...
just, if you haven't been to the showcase, it's just downstairs in the sort of back left corner. I did it yesterday. It's really fun. Very fast paced and very, ours was so positive. Everything we had health tech and biotech, and it was all we're saving lives, we're helping, we're making things better. I was like, God, all these startups are actually really cool.
They're trying to make the world a better place.
Some are, yes.
Well, I'm going to be focused on the interview today with Mary Barra, GM's CEO and chairman. Our managing editor, Matt Rosoff, is going to be doing that interview. And of course, we'll be covering that. And I'm really interested to hear what she has to say because she's been here for a decade in this position. Fortune has put her as most powerful woman this year, and she's always been in the top 5. And here we are, what is her legacy going to be? And she's been really pushing for, software, all EVs, although they've backtracked on that, and autonomous vehicles through their purchase of Cruise, which hasn't gone quite as smooth as expected. So, how does she navigate that? And what does she want her legacy to be? I'm hoping she answers that question.
Well, let's hope Matt asks those questions.
Let's hope. Matt, I sent him notes, so let's see. Thanks for being my guinea pig. And thank you for listening to The Equity Pod. You can always find us on X and Threads.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Equity is produced by Teresa Loconsolo with editing by Kel. Bryce Durbin is our illustrator, and we'd like to give a big thanks to our audience development team and Henry Pickavett, who manages TechCrunch audio products. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.